Did you know that there are entire plays by Shakespeare that you can't read? I'm not talking about the 4 that we know of that he collaborated on with other writers, like the lost play that he did with John Fletcher called The Two Noble Kinsmen. It's that one we actually have most of. We just don't have all of it. I'm talking about the ones where we only have rumors of their existence, the ones that we don't even know the titles of, and the ones where we don't know who the characters are or what the story is about. For example, we know that Shakespeare wrote a history play about King John, but we don't have it. All we have is the title, which is either The History of King John or The Life and Death of King John. We also know that it was probably about the signing of the Magna Carta, because we have a reference to it in a letter from 1619 that says, "He that will not obey the king's laws shall be out of the king's protection." And that is a direct quote from the Magna Carta. We also know that Shakespeare wrote a play called The Chronicle of Leontes, but we don't have that either. We don't know anything about it except for the name. But we do have a character named Leontes in another play called The Winter's Tale, which is probably a late and possibly uncharacteristic work of Shakespeare's. So this other play might have been written very early in his career. And then there's The Clandestine Marriage, a comedy that we know he wrote, because we have a reference to it in a letter from 1604. It says, "I saw your play of The Clandestine Marriage, the best that ever I saw in my life." But we don't have the play. We only have the title. And then there's the rumor play, which is called The Fair Maid of the Exchange, or The Jilt. And we don't have any evidence that Shakespeare was even involved in this at all. All we know is that there's a reference to it in a book called The Dramatic Records, which was published in 1832. And it says that Shakespeare acted in a play called The Fair Maid of the Exchange. But we have no record of it before that. And it may have been based on a character in one of Shakespeare's plays, like a female version of Falstaff. And then there are other plays that we know even less about. We don't know the titles of these, and we don't know if they were written by Shakespeare or someone else entirely. For example, we know that Shakespeare's company performed a play called The Troublesome Reign of King John, but we don't know who wrote it. And there are other plays that we know nothing about at all, except that they exist because we have a reference to them in an authoress note in a book called The Dramatic Record. It just says that Shakespeare's company performed a play called The Life and Death of a Soldier, but we have no record of it anywhere else. And we don't even know if it was a play about a real historical figure or just a generic soldier. So yeah, there are a lot of Shakespeare plays that you can't read, and maybe someday we'll find them.